My name is Rowan Pierce, and tonight I was not invited to dinner. I was summoned to surrender. The dining room in my parents' house in Charleston was staged the way they stage everything, polished intentional a performance. Crystal glasses already poured, silver laid out like weapons. The chandelier above the table threw warm light over everyone except me. I wasn't given a place setting. I was given a chair. My mother adjusted a vase of white peonies like we were hosting donors. "You could have worn something softer, darling," she said without looking at me. "People take you more seriously when you don't look sharp." My blouse was plain white. My pants were black. I'd come straight from my office. I hadn't arrived here to be dressed. My father sat at the head of the table, shoulders leaned back, hands folded over authority. He didn't plan to negotiate. "Rowan," he began, and the way he said my name told me this was already decided. This has gone on long enough. Across from him, my sister Sutton crossed her legs and set her leather bag on the table like a flag. She was smiling. "I've seen that smile in boardrooms. We talked about it," she said. "And we've agreed on something that will actually stabilize your life. There's an analyst opening at the firm. Junior level. You'll report to me. You'll start Monday." It wasn't a suggestion. It was a placement. I didn't answer. I checked the time. It was 4:10 p.m. In 1 hour and 50 minutes, every person at that table would learn something I had known for months. I wasn't the weak point in this family. I was the exposure. Dinner at my parents' house was never about food. It was about hierarchy. By the time the first course arrived, my place in it had already been assigned. My father spoke between slow cuts of steak, his tone managerial. "You've had your experiment, Rowan. It's time to join the real world." The word experiment rolled off his tongue like a flaw in a report he planned to correct. My mother poured more wine, her pearls clicking softly against the glass. "Your father's right. You've proven your independence. Now it's time to think about stability." Across the table, Sutton smiled with rehearsed patience. "I already spoke to HR. The analyst role is waiting. I'll oversee your onboarding personally." It wasn't cruelty that stung, it was choreography. Every line had been rehearsed. They hadn't invited me to speak. They'd invited me to comply. I let my fork rest. "So this is what a family intervention looks like," I said quietly. "Intervention." My father's laugh was short. "We're saving you from embarrassment." Embarrassment. That was their favorite currency. Every choice I made outside the family firm was a public blemish they had to polish away. They didn't care that I'd spent the last 8 years building something real, something theirs couldn't even comprehend. Sutton dabbed her lips, already done with the conversation. "It'll be good for you, Ro. Structure mentorship direction." Direction. I almost laughed. I looked at the chandelier above us, gold light fracturing across crystal. Every reflection showed a version of me they preferred: obedient, contained, forgettable. But beneath the table, my phone buzzed once. A coded alert from Marcus. "Everything's cleared for 6 o'clock." I set it face down beside my untouched plate. Let them finish their script. Mine was about to begin. By 5 o'clock, the air in that dining room felt vacuum-sealed. They'd moved from career talk to image control, what the neighbors might think, what the club might say, how my name sounded in whispers. I'd stopped responding. It was like being reviewed by a board that didn't own any shares. My father leaned back. "You've built... what exactly?" "Some little finance app?" I met his eyes. "A platform, not an app." Sutton laughed low and sharp. Semantics. They didn't know. They couldn't know. Orem Labs wasn't a passion project coded in a cafe. It was an infrastructure backbone for regional banks, real institutions with vaults and regulators and billion-dollar ledgers. We'd just finished the integration that would let us process live risk data across 4 states. but in this room, none of that mattered. "Rowan," my mother said, her voice softening the way surgeons soften before cutting. "You're 30? She stopped herself, catching the look in my eyes. "You're still young. There's time to start over before this experiment defines you." Start over. I'd started over a dozen times already after they refused to fund my prototype, after I sold my car to make payroll, after investors told me no one trusted a woman who built banking software. Every failure had been tuition. My phone vibrated again. "Marcus. Press schedule confirmed. 6:00 p.m. Eastern." I checked the time discreetly. 55 minutes. Sutton mistook the glance for nerves. "Don't worry," she said. "Dad and I will handle the paperwork. You'll just need to sign the employment contract." I looked at her polished nails, her certainty that control was genetic. They thought I was the problem in the family equation, the unstable variable. But in less than an hour, they'd realize I was the factor rewriting it. By the time I left Charleston, the sun had already fallen behind the river, turning the water into a long strip of copper. My reflection followed me through the car window, a woman they still thought needed saving. When the elevator doors opened at Orem Labs, the air changed. The hum of servers replaced the dining room's silence. The glass walls showed the skyline glittering like a circuit board. Marcus looked up from the conference table sleeves, rolled 2 phones in hand. "They're queued," he said. "Press embargo lifts at 6 sharp. Argent National confirmed the signature 20 minutes ago." I nodded, unbuttoning my coat. "And the statement, pre-approved. You just have to read it." For a moment, I stood at the window. Below us, the lights of downtown blinked oblivious. My mother would be finishing dessert. My father would be checking market updates. Sutton would be explaining to someone how she handled me. The wall clock read 5:57. Marcus smiled. "You sure you want to do this from here? We can still reroute to the press center." "No," I said. "Here is fine." At 6:00 p.m., the room came alive. Screens alerts, the pulse of headlines moving faster than breath. Orem Labs acquires Argent National's digital division in $7.9 billion deal. Marcus let out a low whistle. "Congratulations, CEO Pierce." On the monitors, analysts were already debating implications. Banks would scramble, old firms would pivot, and somewhere in a white-lit dining room, a phone would start ringing. I picked mine up. One new message, Dad. "We need to talk. Urgent." I closed the notification and turned back to Marcus. "Schedule the board call for 7:30. I expect company." He raised a brow. "The Pierces." "The entire lineage," I said, because tonight wasn't about a merger. It was about the correction of a record. By 7:30, the skyline outside my office had turned dark enough for the glass walls to act as mirrors. I could see myself reflected beside Marcus, who stood near the conference table arranging 2 glasses of water, one for me, one for him. But when the elevator chimed, he quietly replaced mine with 3. My father entered first, followed by my grandfather, Henry Lowell. The contrast between them was almost theatrical, my father's tailored precision beside Henry's worn gray suit and wooden cane. "Rowan," my father said, voice low, controlled. "You've made quite a scene today." "I announced a merger," I corrected. "Scenes are for theaters." He ignored that. "You've destabilized the market. Our firm's already taken a hit. We can fix this if you'll stop whatever it is you're doing and come home." Henry chuckled softly. "She is home, Charles. You just haven't noticed the address changed." My father's jaw tightened. "This company Orem Labs, it's hurting the Pierce name." "No," I said. "It's redefining it." I slid a folder across the table. Inside the offer, a strategic merger. Pierce and Lowell would remain a brand, but Orem Labs would own controlling interest. They'd gain survival. I'd gain silence. "You expect me to sign this?" "I expect you to recognize inevitability," I said evenly. "Your clients are moving to digital systems we already control. Within 6 months, you'll be selling legacy consulting to banks that no longer exist. Henry leaned on his cane, eyes gleaming. Told you she was the smart one. My father looked down at the papers, then up at me. For the first time that night, his confidence cracked. Why, he asked quietly. Why keep this from us? Because you only listen to success when it speaks your language, I said. I needed to rewrite the grammar first. Outside, the city lights flickered like applause. When Henry left the room, silence expanded between my father and me like a negotiation table no one wanted to cross. The city outside was all glass and motion. Inside, everything stood still. He finally spoke. You've humiliated this family. I folded my hands. No, I've updated it. He ignored that, focusing on the folder I'd given him. You're asking me to dissolve my own firm into yours. I'm offering you continuity, I said. In 6 months, your traditional clients will be obsolete. The small banks you advise already signed with Orem Labs for integration. The rest are next. You can keep fighting me or own a part of the future. He stared at the window where his reflection overlapped mine. You think I'll take orders from my daughter? I think you'll do what's necessary to keep your employees paid. He turned, voice dropping. You've been planning this for years. Not planning, I said quietly. Preparing. I showed him the live dashboard on my tablet, our newest AI module projecting financial migration data in real time. These are your clients' transactions moving on to my systems tonight. That's what inevitability looks like. His hands trembled slightly as he set the folder down. You could have told me. I did, I said. You just heard disobedience instead of vision. For a moment he looked older, less like a patriarch, more like a man out of time. I softened my tone. This doesn't have to be defeat. Let Pierce and Lowell merge under Orem's umbrella. You'll keep the legacy. I'll keep the future. He didn't answer, but when I stood, he didn't stop me either. As I reached the door, Marcus texted Dow Jones trending. Orem plus 23%. Pierce and Lowell downgraded to neutral. Correction was already in motion. By dawn, the headlines had multiplied. Every news ticker in the financial world carried the same message: Orem Labs completes acquisition. Industry braces for restructuring. My phone was a war zone of missed calls and unread apologies. Marcus was already in my office when I arrived. He handed me a coffee, eyes still bright from no sleep. You should see the numbers, he said. Orem up 32% pre-market. Pierce and Lowell down 45%. I took a sip. Stability, they said. He grinned. You've just redefined it. On the muted television, my sister Sutton appeared outside the Pierce and Lowell building giving a press statement. We've always supported Rowan's vision, she said, her smile stretched too thin to hide the tremor in her voice. This merger reflects the family's long-standing commitment to innovation. I muted the sound. File a cease and desist, I told Marcus. No one speaks for Orem except me. Already drafted, he said. Your mother's been posting about you all morning, 3 interviews booked for next week. Of course she had. The same woman who once told me no respectable man would marry a woman obsessed with code now wanted me on magazine covers. The intercom buzzed. Your grandfather's here, my assistant said. Henry stepped in carrying a cracked leather briefcase. Inside were pages from years ago, my first predictive models scribbled in pencil graphs, crooked notes, messy. You saw patterns before any of us did, he said softly. We just didn't believe the scale. I smiled. Belief was never the metric. He chuckled. Your father called a board vote. They've accepted the merger terms. Outside the window, the city glowed with early light. In its reflection, I saw not the rebel they once described, but the architect of a new order. Sometimes power doesn't roar, it recalibrates, and this time the silence belonged to me.